Hey guys, Tim here from Clean Commit. So, around 18 months ago, we were commissioned to build a headless Shopify store. Unfortunately for the Fresh Online team, the pandemic was raging at that point, and economic shift had a fairly significant impact on their business. And they decided to wrap up the project rather than continue. But the silver lining is that they gave me permission to showcase the project and use it as a bit of like a demo site, I suppose. So this is good news for you guys, because if you're considering modifying your store to be headless, then you've poked around some stores where they've already gone through the transition, but you don't really know what it looks like from the administrative perspective. So, I mean, what does it look like when we change Shopify to run headless? How do you manage products? How do you write content? These are big questions that you really want answered before you dive into this kind of upgrade. And I mean, the benefits of going headless are pretty strong. You increase your site performance significantly, which can be a problem for older and larger Shopify stores, especially if you're running a number of plugins. Same goes for BigCommerce or any other e-commerce engine. So moving to a headless architecture where you're just consuming the information by API and you're using something like Gatsby or Next as a front-end framework to statically generate a lot of the content means that the pages load really quick, which I'll show you in a second. It also means that you've now got access to these React-based front-end frameworks or whatever kind of framework that you want to use. And you can build pretty much whatever you want. Like you've effectively turned your Shopify store into an application. So you're still using Shopify to manage the products and pull the information through. But if you want to create a completely customized checkout wizard where you take your customer through and ask them questions and then use those inputs to provide recommendations or generate, I don't know, like customized stuff that's specific to that user so they feel special and they feel heard, then that's completely on the table. And those kind of creative directions with a Shopify store are things that you really can't do when you're just using a monolithic theme. I mean, you might be able to, but it would be a huge amount of development. It's not manageable and it really can't be scaled. So I mean, there's other benefits of going headless, but that's not really what I'm here to talk about. What I want to show you guys in this brief video is what this headless store looks like, and then some of the big differences that you notice between just in the day-to-day use of this store compared to a regular monolithic Shopify setup. So let's just take a quick browse around the store, and I'll start with just saying don't look too carefully into the design. We did make this look a bit nicer when it was originally developed, and then the Fresh Online guys changed the images a bit, but that's part of the appeal of a headless store and the way that we've configured it, because all of the content is completely manageable. So I'll show you the content management system in a second, but you can change these headlines, you can change the text here, you can change the text on the button. We built a little widget in here that checks whether these guys can deliver to your area. So I'm actually outside of their postcode at the moment, so they wouldn't be able to deliver to me. So looking at these products, these images, names, prices, and weights are all pulled through the Shopify API, and then they land in Gatsby and they're styled to look like this. But if you change things in Shopify, if you change these images or product meta, then they'll be reflected on the website. Gatsby, I won't get into the technicalities, but it takes a minute or two to process those changes. So unlike something like Shopify or WordPress where you hit the publish button and then it's done instantly, it takes a minute for the changes to show up. So this is the customer view. Now, what I want to show you is just how quick it is to browse around this store. And I can't emphasize the importance of page load speed enough. Customers they're skeptical and they're impatient. So if you don't give them a reason to think that you're untrustworthy, if you look trustworthy and you don't make them wait, then you're going to have a good time, and it's going to have a fairly significant impact on your conversion rate. So we built these cool little custom filters in here, so you can go through all of the products. So all of the products are loaded when the user first lands on the site. They're cached, and then they can jump through and find whatever they need. This would be different if you had a massive library, a ton of SKUs, but or products. But it's a similar system, so it can be configured so it's really quick for the user to jump through and find which product they want. So I think they've actually turned the blog content off in here. So we'll have a look in a second at what it looks like from the administrative perspective to write content. Let's do that now. So this Shopify store is set up with Gatsby, as I mentioned a second ago. So you can see in here, Gatsby is a React framework, and React is the JavaScript framework written by Facebook, very popular. So we've integrated this with Prismic, and Prismic is a headless content management system. The layout looks somewhat familiar for anyone who's used content management systems before. Looks very different from Shopify. And you're probably thinking that it looks a little unstructured because we've got like the about page and the policy page and the shop page. Like, what's going on here? Well, in Prismic, you use types, tags, and you can do authors if you're using blog content. But types and tags are the big kind of categorization. So, and collections as well, I think. So collections, we'll have a look at the articles. So if I go into collection and filter by article, okay, these guys have no blog articles. So let's create a blog post. Now, okay, so I have to put a title in. This is a test post. Okay, so the slug is generated automatically. There's a thumbnail in here where we could go and add an image. So, ooh, cows. Yeah, let's do that. Cows are great. You can put your alt text in here. This is important for SEO. This is important for SEO. Date of publication today, author link. I think, okay, this is just a lorem ipsum author configuration that we set up. But if you guys have a content team and you want to nominate which author has written the post, which is a really cool way to do it, because it looks really tidy and professional to nominate an author, then you can pick them from the list. You can write an excerpt and then into the content. So this is where the content goes. And then we can embed stuff if you want a YouTube link, or we can add an image. So we can add another picture of a cow or lady chopping some meat. Let's add this steak. That looks pretty good. So then we put alt text here. Prismic works with these. They're kind of like blocks. So if you want to put an image in, then you need to go and jump over it and continue writing down here. So this is the process for putting content in with Prismic. Prismic's pretty nice to write content with. The editor, I'll just zoom out a bit because I'm zoomed in quite close. The editor's nice and easy to use. This is in direct contrast to using something like to the regular Shopify setup, where if you were to do this, you come into blog posts and then add a blog post. And it's like similar process, but it just looks a bit nicer, and the multi-author functionality is a bit tighter. So yeah, I don't know, not a huge difference, just a nicer experience and easier to write content. You can dump content in here nicely and configure it a little bit more for SEO. So if you need to have different content to your SEO descriptions, you can come in and post them in Prismic. So sure, let's save that. And then that will take a minute to build, as I mentioned before. While that's happening, we can go back to the home page. So to do that, you just remove the collection and then we can jump into home. So this is what I was mentioning before. The home page is actually split into a number of sections. So if we jump back over here, this header, this notification bar at the top is the first thing that we'll see. So if I jump back over here, So we have the option to, I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So the category section, I can make that sticky. And then the next section is this banner. So best value meat and seafood in Sydney. That is this here. So I could change that text. And then I've got the hero section and the image and then the product carousel. And Prismic's actually really nice because it pulls these images through Shopify. So if I wanted to add another image here, I could browse the Shopify API library and let's say steak. Okay, porterhouse, sure. And then I could save and publish that. And and then the details of that product would show up automatically. So, I mean, that's a really nice feature. If you want to rearrange the content on your page, you can drag things up and down. And say you want to test putting this right up the top, changing the headline, then all of that is super easy. So the content management when you're using a headless store does become a lot easier. And I mean, it's not that you can't do this kind of stuff on regular Shopify. It's just that it becomes a bit easier, and it's a different thing looking at it in the small scale, just for like a small store like this. But for a big store where you have a lot of content, a lot of landing pages, the efficiencies of being able to reorder stuff, build new landing pages quickly, and choose from these pre-styled blocks. So if I add another block in here, I can choose a page header, a hero, full width content. So all these sections that are already created, the styling is kind of locked in. So they're going to use the same fonts, they're going to use the same text sizes. So category section. So they're all kind of pre-styled, but the content within these sections is completely configurable. So you can put different headlines in, you can put different images in. You have control over the content, but the actual styling is locked in, which is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. You don't want most business owners don't waste their time redesigning every page. They want a page that looks really good, builds trust, and gets the message across quickly. But you also want to test the big things like images and copy, because they're the things that have the most impact once you've got your design pretty nicely dialed. So from the customer's perspective, that's pretty much the big difference, the speed and the functionality that you can provide. So if you wanted to get really creative with the personalization stuff, then that's within your domain. From the administrative perspective, we've already covered the content. So that's pretty much it for content. That's how you manage the content. It's a neatly organized way of managing all of the site's content, especially if you have a lot. I think we've even split out what you would usually call custom post types, like the team members. So you can add new team members and blog authors, which I showed you before. So from a product perspective and like what you usually use Shopify for, this is where all the products are managed. This would look familiar to anyone who's ever used Shopify, which hopefully is you if you're watching this video. And pretty much most of the regular stuff that you use Shopify happens in here. So if people put orders through, they appear in the order section. You know, this is all fairly standard stuff. This stuff doesn't change. So product management, order management, analytics will change. So I'll show you why this happens. So what we've effectively done, if you look at the, where'd it go? If you look at the URL up here, which I can't zoom in on, it's freshonline.gatsbyjs.io. Now that's not what you would usually expect for a store. I think Shopify stores default to .myshopify.com. So, let's get out of that. So when you actually look at the store, because what a headless architecture does is it applies a new front end. So you're still using Shopify as the back end, but the front end is the bit that interacts with the browser. So we've applied this new front end to Shopify. So when it goes looking for the regular domain, which is freshonline.net.au, which is what we configured this Shopify store to look for, then it doesn't see anything. So even if I go freshonline. myshopify.com. Then, well, I might have entered that wrong, but the point I'm trying to make is it won't be able to find that regular URL because we've applied a custom front end and it's living on a different domain. So what that really means is, it sounds technical, but what it really means is unless you're using, the only time you notice it is unless you're using Shopify Plus, if customers try to log into your Shopify store, they'll be redirected to a page that doesn't exist. So there are workarounds to handle that, but it also means because we're using a different front end that the analytics are broken because Shopify is looking for here we go. So if I grab this one, freshonlineshop.myshopify.com, if I just plug that in, oops, and actually spell it right. Yeah, so it redirects as freshonline.net.au, and there's nothing there because we've built a custom front end. So yeah, the analytics engine is looking at the wrong domain and it won't see anything, which means that you need to find another analytics plugin or analytics platform to look and measure the way that your customers are interacting with your store. The other complication can be Google Shopping, because I think Google Shopping needs the checkout domain to be the same as the store domain. And to make that happen, because Shopify, one of the quirks of Shopify, until you go to Shopify Plus, is that it makes you check out on this Shopify domain. So I can show you that over here actually. So we're on freshonline.gatsby.io/cart. I've got these products in my cart. I want to check out. And then when it loads. Okay, so it's now taken me from freshonline.gatsbyjs.io to freshonline.myshopify.com. So we're on a completely different domain now. And this is just a regular Shopify cart, but Shopify makes you use this cart until you go to Shopify Plus. So there's no way around that. And jumping from one domain to another, if you know anything about internet security, is a big no-no in the browser's eyes. So there's problems with authenticating users across domains here. So all this goes to say is if you're on Shopify Plus, then none of this is a problem. If you're on regular Shopify, then this is probably going to be a problem and cause you to use some workarounds to get around the weirdness that happens here. So we've hidden the login button. By default, there will be a login button for returning customers. And when you do that, it takes you to a page that just has nothing on it because there's no store living at freshonlineshop.myshopify.com because it's all living at freshonline.gatsbyjs.io. So that's it. That's my brief tour around Headless Shopify store. There's probably more that I could go into. But we start diving into third-party systems like analytics, as I mentioned before, and all of the workarounds that you need to kind of achieve to build this collective microservice headless store. So so Headless Shopify stores are great. It's a big change. You do have to use a lot of third-party applications to achieve a lot of the functionality that you want, but it gives you the flexibility to use the best system for the best outcome. So, for instance, Shopify's analytics are pretty good, but if you wanted a deeper insight, you could plug in Segment. And Segment follows users across social media and different platforms and applications and stuff and gives you a much broader picture into how people are interacting with your content. Then it prompts you to send out emails at the right time of day and that kind of stuff. So you can really optimize your conversion rate and the experience through your website. But it takes a lot more effort. It costs a lot more money because there's custom development involved and there's a fair bit of risk involved in making the jump. So there's ways to mitigate that risk. And I think I mentioned this on my article, but product road mapping is the best solution for mitigating risk before you make a jump to a headless store. You really need to be confident in the way that you're going to execute the project. And there's a million headless content management systems. So you got to pick one of those. There's a million analytics platforms. You've got requirements that need to be met. So product road mapping is a great way to lower the risk of these big transitional projects without actually jumping into bed with a developer and hoping that they know what you want. So yeah, I'm not going to go on any more about product road mapping. It's a great way to handle the risk. And yeah, so I'm gonna wrap this video up here. I'm happy to, if you end up making it the whole way through this video and you'd like to you'd like to see something else about the Shopify store, the Headless Shopify store, and how it operates, then just drop me a line. I'm happy to do some personalized tours around the store and answer any questions you guys have. So thanks for watching.